once, my ass.
I'm only 4. Bonjour, Monsieur Pussycat.
Cracking toast, Robert.
Start spreading the news.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the short podcast about short films. I'm your host, and we are discussing the Academy Award for Best Animated Short. Today's episode is about the 44th year of the award at the 48th Academy Awards, which celebrates the films of 1975. Today's guest is currently a reporter for the Warrington Guardian, formerly a writer at Discussing Film, and forever will be my friend. Please welcome Michael Slavin. Hello, Michael.
Oh, it's too early in the episode for me to cry. I'm gonna sob.
Welcome.
Hello. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Are you excited?
I am very excited to talk about these wonderful short films. Are you excited?
Some of them.
But before we get into all of that, tell us, what is your familiarity with the Best Animated Short category?
I think that these may be some of the only ones I've ever watched, if I'm being honest.
That is understandable.
No, so I watched that one that Kobe Bryant made that he got an Oscar for.
Dear Basketball.
And the one that won this year, I think I watched that. Which one was the fox, the horse, and
the boy, the mole, the fox, and the horse? Fucking hate that one.
That one. I've seen that. I just never really got around to watching them before, but this was definitely a mixed bag, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, that would be my. I'm bad at watching everything for the Oscars. I'm real bad at it. I tried to once watch all the nominated films and did so poorly.
Well,
but you've watched almost every nominated film of all time, so interesting.
Not that far. I've seen every winner, or all the ones that I can watch. There's like 16 that are just impossible to find online, and I think there's only like 1,900 nominees that I still need to go find it. One. Yeah.
Only. Right.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, that's the story for most people, though. Most people do not watch these animated shorts, and I especially love like this era of the category because like before, we had like stuff like Tom and Jerry shorts and things like that, and people would be like, "Oh, I didn't realize coming onto this that I actually saw this one." But in like the 60s and 70s and 80s, it's going to be a bunch of, "Wow, there is no reason I would ever watch this outside of this category."
No.
And that's what
I've watched some Tom and Jerry shorts, so that's
exactly.
I had an animation module in my final year of university, so I watched the Willie Steamboat and all those sort of like very early ones because we had to sort of cover the whole history of it.
So it focused on like early animation, like 20s and 30s stuff, and 40s.
Yeah, so there was a lot of focus on basically. As the module went on, I went to less and less of my. So as the module went on, I went to like less and less of the actual like sessions. So the early history stuff were the ones that I went to and was paying full attention because it was early on in the semester. Whereas the much later ones were like shaky.
Well, shit. Maybe if you were in the whole class, you could have seen something like Sisyphus or something like that.
I like Sisyphus.
No,
I really like Sisyphus actually.
We'll get there. We'll get there. All right. But let's just get into these nominees straight up. This year has 4. Our first nominee and the year's winner is Great, directed by Bob Godfrey.
I didn't look up who won because I was gonna say, do you want me to guess who won? I was gonna guess that.
Yeah. Let me just go through this so we could talk about it. So this is the second nomination and first win for Bob Godfrey, previously nominated for Kama Sutra Rides Again. As it's such a short time since his last nomination, there isn't much to talk about in terms of his life. His biography is just him becoming famous and then making a bunch of stuff for 50 years. Great is the second winner. That's a British production after Richard Williams' A Christmas Carol. Though Williams was born and raised in Canada, so perhaps Godfrey is the first truly British winner, if you ignore the fact that he was born in Australia, though moved to the UK very early in life. Which is also funny because next year we have an Australian film produced by a woman who was born in England. Another notable fact about the film is that it is the longest nominee thus far, beating out, once again, Richard Williams' A Christmas Carol. A lot of these really long nominees start out as 30-minute TV specials for British television, but Great is thus far the longest, and to this day is still the 10th longest nominee of all time. But I digress. Great tells the story of Isambard Kingdom Brunel, who is a key figure in the Industrial Revolution, in particular in engineering steamships, railroads, tunnels, and bridges. He was also only 5 feet tall and wore an 8-inch tall top hat to compensate. There was also a poll in 2006 about the 100 greatest Britons, and IKB placed second behind only Winston Churchill, which should tell you a lot about what kind of list this was. The film
What?
Great the film Great tells the story of Brunel as a 30-minute animated musical special featuring some traditional animation as well as cutouts of real pictures and some archival footage and other live-action segments. Some may remark that the style seems awfully similar to the animated sequences from Monty Python's Flying Circus, but it's worth noting that Terry Gilliam made those Monty Python segments from Bob Godfrey's own studio, so who influenced who is anyone's guess. Michael, what did you think of Great?
I didn't want to start with Great because it's always better, I think, to start with positivity. And I despise this film. I hate it. It's if you're talking about who influenced who, I think the difference is that Monty Python is good and this just absolutely fucking sucked. It was a piece of shit. I thought that it was poorly done at various points. I thought it had nothing to say. I thought that it was proud of itself, like it had something to say. And it also just played into various things about Great Britain, which I hate. So combining all of those things, I genuinely had. I'll start with the things I liked about it, actually, before I get into this rant. I thought that at times, sort of the like mixing of animation with live action pictures was quite interesting at points. I the top hat song was funny.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking for my notes to see if I had anything else positive to say.
I just want to
My
quickly
notes.
point out that I did choose you specifically for this episode because you're like the one British friend I had. It's like, oh, I'm not experienced on British
Evil.
history or anything, so it's just like
Mhm.
you are going to have more context than I am. And the fact that I kind of enjoyed this and you fucking hate it shows kind of our differences in terms of understanding the context behind it, I think. But yeah, you keep
I
going.
Yeah, just with it, I don't really have anything else positive to say about it. Like,
Get into the
no, sorry,
negative. Tear the shit apart.
the dramatic like weird train song was quite nice, I guess. Whereas like just over like live action pictures of trains. Um, so just I think to express how I feel about this, I'll just read I'll just read out my initial notes. So my first few notes are this is so fucked up to make me watch this on watch this today because we're recording this on the day of the coronation. I
Yes.
hate this. Oh Jesus, so racist. Oh my God. How did they make a dog look racist? Boring, don't care about your bridges. Lazy caricatures substituting humors. And then in quotes, she has big boobs. Isn't that funny? There were various jokes that were just like stating something normally to the character, but it's a female character and she has big boobs. Isn't that hilarious? Um, and as mentioned in those notes, there was some racist ass shit in this. It was so bad. Like when people try and make the argument, oh, it was for the time. Don't buy that argument normally anyway. This was the 70s. This wasn't some like back in ye olden day time first ever animation. This was full racist black caricatures from like the 40s in a 1975 film. And to do those caricatures and then say nothing with it and also not acknowledge a big part of this is about the Industrial Revolution in Great Britain and not acknowledge the exploitation that was undertaken on people of color and black people in Great Britain to achieve those things is crazy, is wild. I hate it.
Yeah, it's like that's one of
You
the things.
liked it apparently. So tell me, why are you a racist?
I just wanted to say that, like, even from my like lack of context about whoever the fuck Isambard King of Brunel is, like that's one of the things I did really notice is that how it is very much like uncritical about like him
Oh
and the
yeah.
whole industry and all that. And I was like looking after the film, I was like trying to do some research about who this fucking guy was, because I'm just anything negative about this fucking guy, but I couldn't find a single article about like, hey, here's why he's not like totally the best guy ever. It was like couldn't find a fucking thing. It's just like I don't fucking know. But
Well, because it's very possible that this specific person may have just been a quirky, fairly well-mannered guy who was very influential in a time that was very important in British history. That doesn't mean that they didn't benefit and take advantage of and use the exploitation inherent in the
mhm,
progression of Great Britain to be the nation that it is today. Like, I just find it wild where things that talk about Great Britain and don't point out that what Britain was great at and what they did well compared to everyone else is being able to exploit other countries, take their
mhm,
resources, and then build everything on top of that. Like there is an interesting discussion about the fact that where Great Britain is today, with many multicultural, multinational places, is like all these awful things have happened in the past, but a positive. If you have to pick any positive result, it's how amazingly multicultural lots of parts of Britain are. But to sort of do this and just ignore that and be like, actually, it was because this train man with a funny top hat was smart, is just so lazy. And that was like so much of it for me was just really lazy. Like the humor being that someone just has big boobs, like uh, the all of the stuff of Queen Victoria, the jokes wasn't about her or about the royals or about the issues inherent with the royal family. It was all just, oh, we've made her look a bit silly. That's criticizing her,
mhm.
right?
And she's so horny for him too.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's what a great way to criticize the royals. Let's just make them horny.
Hmm.
Hilarious. Love it. No, didn't have anything more to say there. Um, I just think like it's what I was sort of saying in terms of it didn't really have that much to say in terms of caricatures aren't really critical of anything if they don't say anything.
Hmm.
Like if you just take a fucking caricature drawing from off the side of the beach for some fucking shyster who charges you £50 for it, that's not a criticism of someone. It's only when you actually do something with it that it becomes anything. And there was just so much of that in this where it was just not trying to say anything, but pretend like it was and like it was being this edgy, interesting film.
Hmm.
I did not like it if it wasn't clear.
Yeah. Oh no, I thought you had a grand old time with it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
I'm also, I have to say, incredibly heated today because it's the coronation and I'm a vehement anti-royalist.
mhm.
Uh, so my feelings on Great Britain today of all days are not as positive as perhaps is best to watch this short film. If you'd asked me to watch this short like the day after the London Olympics, I'd be like, oh, maybe that'd be great. Because that was the last time I actually cared about this fucking hellscape of a country.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, one of the things I did find, like when I was like researching
mhm.
Isambard after this, was the fact that Kenneth Branagh did quote unquote play him in the opening ceremony. Like he read a
Oh,
Shakespeare speech and had the fucking top hat on and everything.
oh, so that's what that was. I see. Because I remember watching it and just being like, "Fuck is that?"
Yeah, it's
I
like
will also. You've also picked like about the worst Brit because my British history. Because I grew up abroad, so my British history is kind of ass. So I'd never heard of them before. Um,
okay. Uh,
Helpful, I know. The one reason you brought me on.
that's fine though. It's like You're the British person I'd most like to talk to anyway. So
Ah,
that's the real reason. It's just like, oh,
that's cute.
you qualify as British. I'll bring you.
I qualify as British, but it's amazing.
Uh,
Um,
but yeah, so
yeah, I just don't really have that much more to say about it. Like, I'd be interested to hear what you liked about it.
yeah, uh, so yeah, I did like it when I watched it, and it was mainly just because I really liked the animation. Like I
Mhm.
thought, just most quote unquote most of the character designs I thought were nice, and that it's just like the just like yeah, the mixture of traditional and the cutouts and everything. I just thought it was done just really, really
It
well.
was creative, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And also some of the songs were good. Some of the songs are fun and catchy. It's just like I was watching this mostly just kind of head empty about it. It's just because I didn't know who this fucking guy
Yeah.
was. And it's just like, wow, it's this fucking guy who has a kind of cool name. It's just like, wow, he did all this stuff, whatever. And it's just like, and I,
Yeah, I struggled to engage with it a fair bit, I will say. Like
mhm,
it just didn't I didn't care about the story and it just kind of jumped straight into things. So I was also watching a little bit head empty and just kind of
mhm.
like steam coming out my ears in the corner.
Yeah, and like we were saying, it's just like on a day with so much British propaganda, it's like you did not need more of it.
No,
Yeah. Especially since
no.
part of your job is going to be like a fueling the propaganda machine.
Yeah, no comment on that one. In case my boss ever listens to this, no comment, no comment. I have no feelings on that.
Okay. Anyway, uh, but yeah, like I was very just like I just watching this, just looking at it really, not even
Yeah,
thinking about it too much. But I also want to say that whenever I first watched this, however many years ago that was, uh, I like this a lot more than I did now. Now, it's just like I thought this was one of the best nominees in the category, but watching it now, it's just like it's fine. It's all right. It 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 goes on for a bit too long. Like it does not need to be 30 minutes
no,
long at all.
nothing that's called it. I don't think a short should be. I think they should have like a 20-minute max limit,
Hmm.
personally. This isn't a short.
Yeah, it it does sometimes feel weird how like the only distinction between long and short films is like 40 minutes. The lower than 40 minutes is a short film, higher than 40 minutes is a feature. Or and it's just like I feel like there should be more divisions in that. Like
Yeah, like
and
weight classes and fighting.
and even like not just for like more divisions of short films, but for feature films too, because like a 5 hour film is so much different than a 90-minute film.
Yeah.
No, and so just like we,
If if they did that, would you include Vines and TikToks as a measurement of film?
I mean,
Would a Queeby be one?
I mean, yeah, they are technically films. They are technically like a part of the film medium. They can qualify as cinema.
Queeby.
I think it's Quibi. Yeah, it's
Fucking
dead now anyway, so who
Americans.
gives a shit? Isn't
I
like
give a sh. R.I.P. I miss you so bad, Queeby.
I did not expect Quibi to come up on this episode. I didn't expect to think about
You,
Quibi ever again.
you fool. The fake Jack Sparrow house show that people made up and everyone believed was part of Queeby because it was believable they'd make something that insane is so dear to me. You'll always be special to me, fake Jack Sparrow house show. That now that tweet should be the true 1975 animated short film winner at the Oscars, not this shit.
Oh
Not this
gosh.
shit with the fucking. Oh, isn't it sad at the end because he died? No, because I didn't give a shit about him, and you didn't make me give a shit about him.
Hmm. Yeah, Bob Godfrey should have had the foresight to make a short film about Jack Sparrow, even though the character
Hmm.
wasn't made for another 30
Hmm.
years. And
Exactly.
exactly.
I'm glad you agree.
I do agree. Uh, but yeah, I I think we have discussed this film plenty. Oh, I just going back to Quibi for a second. Do you know that show, Jury Duty, that's out right now? People are kind of talking.
Yes.
That feels like such a Quibi show. Like that should be a
Oh,
Quibi.
even though I'm not even going to continue the bit that I liked Quibi. I'm just going to be like, that's harsh. It's a really great show.
Like I'm not saying it as a bad thing. It just feels like something that I would see advertised as being on Quibi. Like that fucking Chrissy
I feel
Teigen
like a Quibi
show.
version of that show, because the thing about jury duty is that it's incredibly ethically done, and a Quibi version of that show would break the Geneva Convention, and I'm sure of that. I don't know which article of it, but it would break the Geneva Convention because
Okay.
that company was insane.
All
The,
right.
the fact that the last bit on Quibi is the fact that the CEO, in announcing that everyone was about to be sacked, sent them a link to Happy, from Trolls.
Oh
If
my
I was
God.
being fired and someone sent me a link to watch that to help out, I can't actually continue my train of thought of what I would do because I will be arrested.
Happy is from Despicable Me too, by the way.
Wasn't
I,
it also in Trolls?
I don't know. I Can't Stop the Feeling is from Trolls.
Mm, might be can't. No, it was Happy from Despicable Me then. I hate Can't Stop the Feeling as well because that stops Sing Street from getting any nominations for Best Original Song.
uh yeah.
Well, this
Eh,
is you truly have been given the hardest task of all, which is keeping a ADHD child who's quite tired on topic.
you're this is great. I love fucking tangents. It happens so
Yeah.
often in this show. Uh and that's
So
why
let's talk about Sing Street and why Harvey Weinstein is personally responsible for that film not receiving any Oscar nominations. Because it was
Sing
his production company and they did a shit Oscar campaign and he lost. It's a film with multiple great songs and he didn't get a single nomination for Best Original Song in a year where a documentary had a nomination for Best Original Song and Can't Stop the Feeling from Trolls 2.
my opinion on that is that Sing Straight didn't deserve any nominations. And our second nominee is Kick Me, directed by Robert Sward.
I'm going to
This is
kick
the
you.
first and only nomination for Robert Sward in this category. However, he got a second nomination later for Best of Visual Effects for Star Trek The Motion Picture. Yes, even though I can't find much about him, what I can see is that this guy used to be an animator and even worked with previous nominee Robert Mitchell on K9000 A Space Oddity. He got this nomination, then transitioned into being an effects artist on films like the aforementioned Star Trek movie, specifically the special edition of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and oddly two Francis Ford Coppola movies, one from The Heart and The Outsiders, which I don't know where that movie had special effects, but I'd love to learn. Anyway, Kick Me is about a pair of red legs doing things. It's as generic as that. Eventually, it's chased by a tennis ball, and that takes up a large portion of the film. I thought it was okay. It was very whatever. If you're just watching a pair of red legs just fucking walking around doing shit, gets chased by a ball. It has like some cool effects about how it breaks out of the film reel at one point. That
Yeah,
it's just like that was
very meta.
the only interesting part of this fucking movie. The rest of it is just the most generic animated short film I've ever seen. What do you think, Michael?
First thing, how dare you say that about Sixth Street?
We
You
have
son
moved
of a
on from
bitch.
that.
You bastard. You.
Back
Oh,
to Kick Me. Come on, Michael.
back to kicking. I will kick you. I am furious.
Please.
I thought it was cute. I get your point that this wasn't like some life-changing film. I probably won't remember it tomorrow. But for the time that I was watching it, I enjoyed it. And I think that there were some quite creative uses of animation. And like you mentioned, it sort of the film starting off inside a film reel, uh, the legs breaking out at one point and getting back into it. The chase sequence with that weird D&D style beholder-esque fucking monster thing that was chasing it in the tennis ball. Uh, I thought it was cute. The music was really good. It felt quite like Looney Tunes in like a nothing is happening, but I'm still engaged kind of way. Um, I think as well, this really hit home for me that this is obviously a pre-3D era of animation. And I think that there's been a resurgence in the last few years of the fact that for a while, 3D animation was always just heading towards the goal is realism and nothing else. And a lot of style was lost in that. And I think in the last few years, there's been a move towards realism being replaced with more stylized versions of things. And I think that this was a real example of it was hyper stylized. Like, I have nothing to say about the story. I agree that it wasn't really anything. But just on a pure style standpoint, I think it was something that's quite lacking from animation nowadays. In not looking for realism, being able to focus on just pure making it as enjoyable to look at as possible. The bit at the end was super weird and it freaked me out and I thought I was tripping.
Yeah, this is like the most minimalist kind of animated film that you can really have outside of Hypothesis Beta, which is another nominee that is entirely just a punch card, like a still shot of a punch card that just like animates the different things. But yeah, this is just, it is so bare bones, so basic, and it's like I could see how that would work for some people. Like, it just gets straight to the point. It's just the light humor. But just for me, I kind of just want a little bit more design, just a little bit more character elements.
It felt like a baby sensory video in a good way.
I
don't know nothing's going on here, but I'm entranced.
You know, I feel like you could kind of say that about a few of these.
Yes.
Especially the next one we'll talk about, which we'll get to that one. But yeah, it's like, yeah, I just do not have much to say about this. I've said everything I could possibly say about this because it is just so limited in scope and everything. It's
one
just
thing I will say, actually, which links to a similar thing I have to say about another film, is I think it is impressive when, with so little to work with, an animator is able to bring a lot of personality to something. And I think the fact that the legs had like a clear and identifiable, they had more of a clear and identifiable personality and character than that engineer bitch from Grey, like fucking top hat motherfucker. I can tell you more identifiable traits about the pair of legs than I can about top hat. Top hat guy, I can just be like top hat. That's his whole personality.
You know, I think I would like the legs better if they did have a big top hat.
That would be exciting.
Yeah, I think
that would be.
That's what this fucking movie's missing. The legs need fucking top hat.
And in your eyes, based on what you've enjoyed so far, there weren't enough racist caricatures in this film, so you just couldn't get into it. Am I correct?
Shut up! No, don't fucking slander me in my podcast.
You can't edit this out either. I will not be edited.
I'm not gonna edit this out.
Keep the racism accusations in.
I only edit this podcast if it's like there is a long pause, like for example, a couple episodes ago, I think it was, I had Rory on and they didn't watch one of the shorts, and so there's just a 10-minute gap in the audio where they watched a short and then they come back. So I edited that out.
If you really want to talk about an ADHD child that needs to watch a sensory video to focus, that is Rory right there.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that fits.
We need a show. I guarantee you, if you ask them to watch Kick Me, they'll love it.
You know what? I will send it to them later. And just be like, hey, watch this with no context, and we'll figure out like what happens.
If you offer to watch on FaceTime with them, they'll do
it. Okay. But yeah, Kick Me. Isn't this a film that exists?
So tell me why Drive It Like You Stole It is less deserving Can't Stop the Feeling for Best Original Song.
Our third nominee is Monsieur Pointu, directed by André Delduc and Bernard Longpré. This is the second and final nomination for producer René Jodoin. It previously nominated last year for Hunger, and this is the first and only nominations for Le Duc and Longbray, our directors. This is also the 11th nomination for a National Film Board of Canada, making this the most nominations a studio has had without earning their first win. NFB will go on to win soon, but it is worth noting this impressive feat of loserdom, like Sing Street. The film is animated in the
Shut
medium
your
known as
fucking mouth.
pixelation, which is not what it sounds like. It's essentially a type of stop motion animation that uses real world people and objects. The technique was popularized in another NFB film, Norman McLaren's Neighbors, and here they are over 20 years later, still playing around with the technique. There isn't too much to say about our nominees, though I want to shout out Andre Duc, who is still with us. He turned 73 this year. I will instead talk about Monsieur Pointu, the Canadian violinist that is the star of this film. His real name is Paul Cormier. He was born into a family of traveling musicians and learned to play the violin at age 9. When he set off on his own, he started out just playing violin on the radio, but gradually grew in fame, turning into an opening act at concerts and becoming quite a figure in Canada. He eventually passed away in 2006 at the age of 84. Going back to the film at hand, Monsieur Pointu is about how it features our titular violinist just trying to play his violin, and comedy ensues and gets more surreal as the film goes on. Michael, what did you think of Monsieur Pointu?
Uh, Very similar to how you thought about Kick Me. Uh, I thought it was cute. It was weird. He was just a silly, goofy little guy. But like, I just kind of felt like the shtick got old very early on. Like it was kind of it had one joke, and it just kind of played that over and over for the whole short. I will say it was kind of what I said before about Kick Me, where it was impressive that they were able to give such personality, like a hat, his violin, um, the various other things that sort of were
Mhm.
trying to prevent him from being able to play the violin. However, I just didn't really care. It just didn't. It really either should have been shorter or had a bit more depth to it. I don't know. Like not depth in like it had to be this emotional dramatic thing. It just had very much the same strand of humor, the same joke the entire time.
Mhm. I definitely get that. And I just want to say that this is the other one that I thought was like very much a baby sensory video. However,
Yeah.
for
Oh
this
yeah.
one, I was very much the baby. I fucking love this one. I do agree that it does go on for a bit too long, but I just thought it was hilarious to me. I just love the fucking this is how fucking weird it is, first of all, because it's just this fucking clown like guy, right, in this black void. He's just trying to play the fucking violin, and then like the violin flies everywhere, his hat flies everywhere. It's just like things just start flying around, and it's just like, and then I'm not. I'll just part of me doesn't want to say what happens at the end, but it's just like it's not a fucking spoiler. This thing is 13 minutes long. Who cares? But it's just like he just fucking separates into all these fucking parts as is, or like this is fucking crazy, man. This is fucking crazy. This is fucking weird, and I love it. It's just on a fucking trip.
Yeah. I just I don't know. I agree it was creepy. It was like a cut fucking nightmare scene from it. I was unsettled at various points. And it did a good job, I will say, of so it was Pointu who was doing the violin for this.
Yeah.
And I think it linked up quite well with like it was diegetic, so you could see that the music that was happening in the film was um, like it it was diegetic. My brain is not making a point here, but I think that that was used really well and it synced up really well in quite a satisfying way. And it was sort of this cute point, I guess, about like music bringing the ordinary things to life. But yeah, it was just a bit weird, and I think the shtick got old quite early for me. I'm clearly in a bad mood today. Normally, I'm very easy to please, but I'm so far being like, no, boring, no, hate it.
And the one that I didn't like is the one that you liked.
It's
Uh,
it's the new Casey Byrne dichotomy.
maybe
Maybe.
it's just the fucking coronation fucking things up. Who knows?
Oh yeah, I
Just
do
blame it
we
on
have
Chuck.
do we have space in the set in the show to talk about how much I hate the Royals?
Uh, do it quickly.
Do it quickly.
Yeah, like
Okay.
I know like if I don't like try Peter you dad, you're gonna go on
Yeah.
like 30 minutes. It's just like we should
Yeah.
try to keep this down a little bit. So just like make it a bit
Yeah.
quick.
Well, I'll just say that I think that my country is a fucking disgrace. I think that it's beyond stupid that sorry. No, if I get started, I will not stop. I hate the Royals. I stopped myself from saying something much more offensive there. There we go. So, Sisyphus.
Wait. Okay.
No, before we move on, I do have a really interesting question about Monsieur Pointu, which is if in Sing Street they turned into a violin at the end of the film, would you have said it was deserving of an Oscar?
Our fourth and final nominee is Sisyphus,
You
directed by
bitch.
Marcel Yankovic. This is the first and only nomination for Yankovic. He is quite an internationally acclaimed animator and perhaps the most famous animator from Hungary. While Sisyphus was an Oscar nominee, his 1977 short film Kuzduk was a short film Palme d'Or winner at the Cannes Film Festival. He created the first animated feature in Hungary called Johnny Corncob, and his second feature film, Son of the White Mare, is regarded as one of the greatest animated films ever made. I watched it a couple weeks ago. It is absolutely amazing. Highly recommend everyone check it out. Just visually stunning all around. There's also his final film, The Tragedy of Man, which took nearly 40 years to get made. Yankovic has thus far relied on state funding to make his films, but once communism fell in Hungary in 1989, it became much harder to fund his films. He made the film one segment at a time, using whatever money he could until it ran out and went off to find more. He wrote the script in 1983, and the film wasn't released until 2011 at a runtime of 2 hours and 40 minutes. And gee, when making that film, it must have felt like a Sisyphean effort at times, which brings us back to
Boo!
today's nominee.
Boo!
Sisyphus
Boo!
is currently the shortest
Boo!
nominee up to this point, beating previous winner, the Crunch Bird. And it is, of course, based on the Greek myth of Sisyphus and depicts Sisyphus pushing the boulder up a hill.
I
I,
love Sisyphus.
I,
Great
th-
myth.
so this is a very short film, and I just wanted to say I thought that Sisyphus had a great ass. It just absolutely delectable. I want to eat that shit up. Uh,
Obviously.
and that's about it. It's a very simple short film. It's a well animated film. He just kind of pushes the builder up the hill, and the boulder gets bigger and bigger and harder to push. Uh, and then it eventually gets to the top, and then that's it. Uh, yeah, it is really good. It's like really well animated. I kind of really
I
liked it.
love this. I really enjoyed this. I think that for me, this was everything that Great was not in terms of a lot of the stuff I was complaining about for Great. I think this was very much the opposite of that. I think the I guess kind of the point of a short is being able to at times make a more complicated point with a very short amount of time, and that acknowledging that whilst it's obviously very hard from like a production standpoint to make a feature film, that when you have a feature film, it's obviously a lot easier to sort of get ideas out and make them more complicated. And doing that in a shorter form is very difficult. I think that despite the short runtime, it for me it had more to say than Great, which had one of the longest runtimes ever. Um, the animation was beautiful. I thought the noise, it was so well like voice acted, like the
Mhm.
struggle
Oh
noises he was
yeah.
making was brilliant. And I loved the like changing textures and forms as he's trying to push it up, as if like his existence was sort of falling apart from the effort of it. Um, and I know you're sort of saying it's like a simple ending, but I actually don't fully agree because I think that so the thing with Greek myths is that Greek myths inherently change so much over time. Like with Greek tragedies, the whole thing was that a Greek tragedy would be told and retold, and Whereas now, when you adapt something, the expectations that you don't change things. The whole point of people going back to watch like Medea or other Greek tragedies was to see what changes were being made. And I thought that in that way, the change for Sisyphus, which of all the Greek myths is probably the most unchanged, it's always just been he rolls a boulder, he cheats death twice, and then is doomed for all eternity to roll a boulder to the top of a hill and then it falls down. So to have it be a slight twist on that and to break your expectations, to have rather than the difficulty of the task being the futility of it, but that it got harder the more he tried and the closer he got. And then have he gets it to the top, and then the reveal that it's not going to fall down at just as you're waiting, because you basically go into it being like, right, I know what the end of this is going to be. The end is going to be it falls back down. How original! And he gets to the top, and it just stays there, and you see that he's actually just been piling them one after the other. I thought it was just a really cute twist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Sorry for monologuing.
No, you're good. Like that's what I want. I want people to talk about this shit and like what they like, what they didn't like. It's just like that's what this whole point of the podcast is. I want you to talk about things, what interesting things you saw in it. And yeah, like it is a really cool twist on it. Like part of me thought like I'm not as invested in the myth as you are, clearly. But I thought like
I'm
that was just
a Percy Jackson kid, baby.
I read those books too, but I wasn't like obsessed with them. I just read them all once, and I was like, yeah, those were good, and then moved on with my life. Which you didn't, apparently. Anyway,
told me that ADHD was a superpower. My young ass ate that up. I was like, oh, that's why I can't pay attention in class. It's because it's not in Latin or ancient Greek.
Oh, but yeah,
that's why I ate my pencil and shit it out. It was because it's because the pencil was supposed to be a quill.
But yeah, I thought that the whole making the mountain out of the stones and whatever, I thought that was just like, oh, a different version of the myth that's told sometimes. But that is just really interesting way to frame the story. It's like he is making his own struggle too. It's like it's not just like, oh, he's forced to suffer, but it's also like he is making his life harder. And just like,
and it's interesting as well when retellings of myths engage with how that myth has been perceived in society, because the idea of something being Sisyphean has progressed to the point where it's just a synonym for struggling, right? For a struggle, for an extreme struggle. So to have a reframed and different version that acknowledges almost the difficulty of that struggle and the place that it holds within society, that myth, I thought that was just really interesting and sort of this like positive reframing of it, because he like, I love the way he kind of like collapses into the boulder at the end. I thought the animation of that was so cool, and it just kind of the way he just like trudges back down. It isn't this like horrible, futile repetition. It felt like he was working towards something and he was struggling. It was awful, but he was making something, and I thought that was a really interesting and positive spin on it. He's just a little guy.
Yeah, that is actually kind of interesting. Like in this context, it's like at this point, it's not even like a punishment or anything. It's just like he's just an artist. He's just making a fucking art piece. He's making a mountain out of boulders. Like
he's making a little thing and going, "Hey guys, look at my little boulder pile."
It's like it. Honestly, it's just like it's fucking guys. That's what guys fucking do. It's just like we should just get a bunch of guys to help him with his boulder pile.
It's like those pictures of like large group of men swarming at the beach when they see that someone's digging a big hole.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking also. Like that's just men can destroy by making holes, but they can also build by making a pile of shit together. And I guess like that's the when you're making a hole, you're also making a pile because you got to like take the dirt out and put it somewhere else.
Ah,
You're making a pile.
unless you eat the dirt.
I mean, then the pile's just inside you.
The pile was inside you all along. The true meaning to the myth of Sisyphus. We've solved it. Um,
Exactly.
oh, look at my notes. The last thing as well that I thought was really cool was the thing about the ball getting bigger the closer he gets to finishing. Was it was like a really interesting commentary on how things like on long struggles, because when you're struggling with something for a very long time, the hardest it will feel is when you're at the closest to it being over. And I thought that was a really interesting point and how it kind of engages with the idea of struggling. Um, and obviously just was really cool from an animation standpoint because the boulder was just taking up more and more of the screen. So
Mhm,
your kind of focus shifts from looking at Sisyphus and his muscly ass and like
mhm.
his form changing and shifting to as the boulder takes over more and more, you focus more on the struggle and less on the man. So I thought that was really interesting.
Your theory is faulty because I never stopped looking at his ass. Uh,
I can focus on two things at once.
I didn't want to because both eyes straight on the ass, just thinking about what I want to do to it. Anyway, uh, one must imagine Sing
You
Street
know where
happy.
you wanted to put that boulder.
Uh, but yeah, uh, I think that's a good place to end with Sisyphus, and that is the last of our four nominees.
Sing Street should have been nominated for the 1975 Best Animated Short.
It would have placed fifth in this lineup then. Now that we've gone through and talked
Oh,
about the
so you
four,
prefer racist to Irish people? I see how it is. You royalists.
let's rank the four nominees. Michael, start us off with your number four.
Um, I don't want to give great number four. I'm gonna Google a different 1975 animated short and give that. 1 second. Let me Google this. I'm not giving it number four. It doesn't deserve number four.
Okay, so
Um,
great is number five. What's number four going to be?
number four is going to be um
Actually,
um
I'm looking up something.
Hedgehog in the no, Hedgehog in the fog is going to get number two. I like this. This looks cool.
Yeah, Hedgehog in the Fog is really good. I'm trying to look
So
up.
number four then is going to be Monsieur Pointu. Um, number two is going to be Kick Me. Sorry, number three is going to be Kick Me. Number two is going to be Hedgehog in the Fog because I like it. That's a freaky little guy. That's so creepy.
Have you seen
Um,
it or no?
no, I'm just looking at pictures of it on
Oh,
Google.
you really gotta watch it. It's really good.
And then number one, Sisyphus.
Okay. Uh, no, normally it is like a back and forth thing with the rank list, like your number four, my number four, but it's okay. Uh, so my number,
Oh, my bad.
it's okay.
That wasn't clear.
Yeah, I don't make it clear on accident, but
You
whatever.
coward. No,
I
and then number 1A is Sing Street.
shut up.
Number six is Trolls 2 for taking up the spot that Sing Street should have had. And number 1C is Quibi.
So you, so sing so Trolls 2 is worse than Great in your opinion.
No, actually, it's
Actually,
not.
it was
Great
Trolls
is
1
worse than
actually.
Trolls 2. Um,
Okay.
and number
Anyway.
zero is Jack Sparrow House from Quibi.
Okay. So just to recap,
Yep.
your real number four is Great. Three was Monsieur Pointu. Two was Kick Me. One was Sisyphus. Is that
Mhm.
right? Okay.
So to go through in full, number six was Great. Number five was Trolls 2. Number four was Monsieur Pointu. Number three was Kick Me. Number two was Hedgehog in the Fog. Number 1C was
Quibi.
Quibi. Number 1B, I
S-
forgot what number 1B was.
Sing Street?
No, number 1A was Sing Street.
Oh. Oh,
Uh,
that wait. Wait,
one
no.
let's say 1B was Do Basketball. Number 1A was Sing Street.
What
Number
is dude
1 was
basketball?
Sisyphus, and number 0 was Jack Sparrow House from Queeby.
Okay. My number 4 was Kick Me. Number 3 was Great. Number 2 was Sisyphus, and number 1 was Monsieur Pointu.
Number 2? Even
Yeah.
after all the points I made? How dare you?
Well, before this episode, Sisyphus was number 3 and number 2 was Great. So it did move up.
I would have flown out there and stabbed you. I
That
will
would have been
live
so
up to the
hot.
British stereotype. I don't care.
Yeah, come stab me, please. I'd like it.
God. Let me threaten you in peace.
No, I won't. I'd either make it too horny or make you feel so bad about it that you would never want to do it, but just be too
And
depressed.
now to the shout out points of the show. I would like to shout out Jack Sparrow House from Queeby.
You didn't even let me get to the point. I was going to say
If you
before we
go
end our
to your
show,
local
are there any
Queeby
final thoughts
store,
you'd like to
you
share,
can pick
Michael, or
up.
anything you'd like to promote?
I would like to promote Jack Sparrow House by Queeby. If you go to your local Queeby store run by Jeffrey Katzenberg, they will give you the $1.7 billion that they received from investors and a free copy of Jack Sparrow House for the small price of $2 billion
Your local Quibi dealership.
at your local Queeby dealership. You may have to find a local drug dealer to put you in touch with the Queeby dealership. So if you want, hit me up and I'll give you a drug dealer's number. They will then put you in touch with a Queeby dealer, and then they will put you in touch with Jeffrey Katzenberg, who will give you Jack Sparrow House, and will then give an Oscar to Sing Street.
I need to send this episode directly to your boss. Tell him you'll listen to it. Tell him.
And if you're listening, Gareth, I would like you to use our marketing budget for this year to bring back Jack Sparrow House for season 2 on Quibi.
Oh my god!
It's coming to a Roku near you.
I did not imagine how far this episode would go off the rails, but I'm very glad it did.
That is your own fault for not
No,
predicting this.
I'm very happy with this. I just didn't expect it.
Coming soon, Jack Sparrow House season 3, Jury Duty. We're gonna take the nice guy from Jury Duty that everyone thinks is hot. We're gonna wipe his brain and try and gaslight him into thinking that he is Jack Sparrow. And then we're gonna give him a job at Goldman Sachs or JP Morgan. Just to see what happens and whether he can cause another economic crash.
It's just 12 Jack Sparrows and then the fucking guy from Jury Duty.
12 Jack Sparrows, the guy from Jury Duty, and Sisyphus. And they're all beating the shit out of the man who made Great.
Bob Godfrey's already dead.
Yeah, we're going to drag him up from 6 feet under and beat his corpse to death. I'm going to encourage them all to take their braids out and hit him with their stinky ass Jack Sparrow hair.
What my went to when I said the guy from Jury Duty was going to be in the Jack Sparrow house was that he's going to get fucking murdered, and then Kenneth Branagh as Hercule Poirot is going to come in and try to figure out who fucking killed him. And then it turns out it was all the Jack Sparrows working together, because this is just fucking Murder on the Orient Express again, except instead of Johnny Depp dying, it's 12 Johnny Depps that do the murder.
They've all been framed, and the actual person that killed him
is Sing
was the
Street.
Little red legs from Kick Me. They kicked him to death.
His feet were pointy.
Because the guy from Jury Duty stole his top hat, and that's why he's not wearing it in the short. So he's been chasing after him since 1975. Because Ronald from Jury Duty was actually a time traveler who stole the hat from the anthropomorphized legs from Jury Duty. No, from Kick Me.
Wait, actually, I'm curious. Like, do you think he's old enough to be born in 1975? Or
no, I said he's a time traveler. Key Park.
No, but like, I'm just wondering, like, is he like old enough? Because he's probably 20 something.
He's probably like closer to my age. Ronald Jury Duty age. Oh wait, 30. He's 30.
Okay. Uh, okay. So yeah, he wasn't born in 1975 or anything. Okay. So yeah, he had to have
Was
been a time traveler.
was his name is Ronald Gladden? Was Ronald Gladden in Jack Sparrow house?
Oh shit! It
Because
says yes.
to be fair, to be fair, a lot of them were hidden under their Jack Sparrow makeup, so he could have been on it.
Maybe you were in Jack Sparrow house this whole time. Maybe this podcast is Jack Sparrow house.
Really, Jack Sparrow house is the friends we made along the way.
Truly. Jack Sparrow house is the boulders we pushed up the hill together.
Um, so uh, if I had to shout out anything else, I would also shout out "God Save the Queen" by the Sex Pistols, um, and various other anti-monarchy songs that can be found, such as the entire discography of the Cranberries, uh, "Up the Republic."
All right. Well, thank you, Michael, for coming on the show. And thank you, listener, for tuning in. This has been the short podcast about short films. Until next time, goodbye.